I'm actually quite surprised that Sir Ridley Scott deemed the theatrical cut of his 2012 sci-fi thriller Prometheus his director's cut, when seemingly all of his releases feel like they have an extended version as well. Nonetheless, I loved Prometheus when I saw it in IMAX 3 times, the first film I saw multiple viewings at the show. I feel like some of the deleted material really helps flesh out the narrative and makes the adventure even better when experiencing the story. A few people made a cut that was similar to an early version and deemed it the work print of Prometheus in 2017. It featured extended and even original footage not included on the home video extras, however, I felt it was a bit too long. Nonetheless, I'll be using this as a base to edit my own version of the film and using the Blu-ray footage as the primary video track for quality purposes. This is my own cut of one of my favorite sci-fi films from the 21st century. Let's begin. I'm going to keep the extended sacrificial scene with the elder engineers. I originally liked the theatrical cut because it's artsy. However, this version explains more clearly that the quote-unquote gods use this pathogen to create life in a sacrifice of one of their own. Only mistake this scene makes is that they walk away from the sacrificial lamb the wrong way from the ship's location and the vessel just takes off. I'm deleting the full-length Wayland TED Talk after the extended opening. The work print goes into the viral campaign piece. It goes on forever. It's literally 7 minutes long, which is about double time for a usual film scene. This scene also explains too much of the film's themes to the audience and repeats itself before the story even begins. It's a nice teaser for the internet before the film came out, but now it's rather useless. I'm going to delete Holloway and Shaw on the Isle of Skye in 2089. This is a bit of a shocker as well, but I'm choosing not to include it, because the two repeat this information at the group meeting. So why have this rather boring scene? I find it useless other than showing their jobs as scientists, excavators, possible lovers, but they don't do that for anyone else before seeing them on the ship. And the most important part of this scene is the line, "I think they want us to come and find them." That's the only reason to keep this, but I'm not going to. Finally, the sequel, Alien Covenant, started on the ship after the prologue of David. Prometheus doesn't need 2 prologues, does it? I'm cutting this one. I'm deleting the new scene of Shaw's transmission to Wayland. In the work print on Mars, there's the viral marketing video of Shaw talking to Wayland via a recording that is rendered out as a completely new scene on Mars. Whoever did this did a pretty good job, but I don't need to see Shaw's reasonings here or expression of her character. They are played throughout the film. The film then plays out as normal, and I'm going to keep David's extended sequence as he watches Lawrence of Arabia. The aspect ratio is off for one shot, which bothers me, but if it's originally created, it's pretty great work. As an audience member, I just really like sitting with him. I feel immersed more so on the ship than before. It also doesn't last that much longer, so I'm keeping it. So by deleting Holloway and Shaw's opening and keeping David watching Lawrence, it really puts an emphasis on David and his story, especially considering what happens in Covenant. The film then plays out as normal, and then I'm going to keep Janek's extended Christmas talk. This extra Christmas dialogue explains the background of both Vickers and Janek and fleshes them out more as human beings. Vickers is slightly inept, and Janek somewhat cares about holidays and being human. Janek also celebrating Christmas in his introduction and making a Christ-like sacrifice in his outro is a good circle. This should have been included in the final cut. Straight into the extended Milburn and Fifield, which I will keep. I love this talk. You get sensory details of cryosleep, and it makes the crew not so bare bones like in the original version, and it's really not that much longer either. I don't get the point in shaving a few seconds to connect with people less. The film then continues normally until the work print original footage of Janek sending out probes and the "Prometheus has landed" line taken from the trailer. I will cut these because Ridley deleted the line from the film completely originally. It's very eerie without it, so I'm not keeping the line. I'm going to keep the theatrical version. Film continues normally, and then I'm going to keep the deleted scene of Milburn finding the Flatworm, our first alien. The biggest reason to keep this is Milburn has established that he knows animal life, he can study it, capture it, etc. It makes the hammerpede scene later a bit more believable using this footage as a setup piece. Even though the audience seeing the hammerpede for the first time probably knows something bad is going to happen considering the genre they're watching. Film continues as normal until the work print deleted footage of David smiling at the black goo. You can tell it's a fan edit scene, and it tips off David too early for being a malicious being, so I'm going to cut it. Film continues normally, and I'm going to keep the extended Shaw's speech of how Earth came to be after David saves her. This is a premise to Holloway's demise. It also shows off that he's human and has the inability to be perfect. Most importantly, it shows why Holloway is down and acting the way he is when David meets up with him at the pool table later. I'm going to keep Milburn and Fifield finding the Hammerpede skin. This is a great scene. It sets up the Hammerpede's evolution from a mealworm to its current threat. It's not solely a callback, but if you want to have the audience not in on the upcoming Hammerpede as a threat, then you delete this, which is exactly what I will not do. I need to spread out the pacing from Shaw to Shaw in the scenes. I don't care if the audience goes, "Oh no, the scientist man is stupid. How would the scientist man know?" You're in on it as an audience member. Let it play out. I'm gonna keep it. Film continues as normal, and then I'm gonna keep the theatrical cut exchange between Holloway and Shaw before they mingle in bed. Holloway in the alternate footage is a complete ass. Even though it's a good conversation because there's a lot of conflict in it, it also makes you want him to possibly die or not care about him when he is infected. However, I do care about the dude because I care about Shaw. The theatrical cut is far superior because there's more humanity and compassion, and Holloway makes up for his mistakes with his lover. Film continues as normal, and then there's an extended scene which I will keep of Holloway and Shaw after Holloway sees something in his eye in the mirror. It's slightly longer than the original, and Ridley wanted it gone because of forward momentum, but the editor loved it because it showed their relationship. I'm agreeing with the editor for this one. It's not too much longer. The film continues as normal, and then I'm actually going to do my own little fan edit here where I'm going to cut the "cut me off" line. It's ridiculous to explain to the audience what happened. "Son of a bitch" is a great line to end on.
You son of a bitch.
I'm not going to include the deleted scene of Vickers and David having a word about David's objective. The scene is not included in the work print, yet I do want to put it back in the film. The editor said they cut this because they wanted Vickers to be in the dark on David's mission, and the scene where Vickers shoves David's face is a great example of this. It also completely ruins the flow of Holloway being sick, so unfortunately, I have to not include. The film continues as normal, and then I'm going to keep the Janek and Vickers conversation about pushing the button and her first murder. It's a very humanizing scene and a great story by Janek, further showing off how great of a person he is. However, Janek repeats what he says to Shaw later, so it's kind of moot, even though he's trying to comfort Vickers, which is great. The editor chose to delete this because of pace. Toughest decision on the edit, but I'm going to keep it because I just love it too damn much. Plus, it spaces out Shaw's passing out and recovery. The work print also includes finished graphics. Great work by those who made it. I'm going to keep the original CGI Fifield attack sequence. Fifield's original look was more of a xenomorph nature, which would have tied into the franchise's lore a bit more. I originally didn't like it, but then I watched them side by side and I disliked the theatrical cut, and I preferred the xenomorph looking Fifield instead. Film continues as normal, and then I'm going to keep Shaw crying and praying in the mirror. Shows her faith even after all of this. It's a very, very short extended shot for the scene, but it's worth keeping. Film plays out as normal. Then I'm going to keep the work print version of the extended dialogue between Vickers and Wayland, but I'm going to have my own little custom edit. I trimmed the last line of Vickers wanting him to see his last breath. It's kind of evil. It's like too evil. So we already get the sense that she doesn't like him. There's no reason to kick a man when he's down. Film continues as normal. Then I'm going to keep the extended engineer Wayland scene of the work print with no speaking engineer. The work print version keeps the Wayland speech to the last engineer, but keeps the engineer quiet. I personally liked the engineer speaking because his voice is very frightening. In a first edit pass through, I cut the first line when he stumbles out, and I kept him only saying his second line to David. I don't know what he says, something like that. But David speaks his tongue, and that's when the engineer talks back to him, so it kind of like earns the engineer's respect to have a dialogue with. However, the editor says that having him talk makes him more human and not godlike. More mysterious equals godlike, even though these creatures are not gods, they're mortals, and even more so in the sequel. But I do like how the work print is sliced together, so I'm going to keep that version, even though I would love to hear the engineer speak one time. The film plays out as normal. I then add on a day for night filter with a 10 to 30% gradual increase when the ship is about to take off. and Janek sees the ground opening up, and it of course ends with the Deacon's birth. I feel like the whole climax is just too bright and it should be darker. The near dusk slash actual dusk just takes up too much film time. Plus, I like the blue hue of the night. It deserves to be in this franchise and sequence. I'm going to keep the extended work print final battle with my own cuts. Firstly, the extended confrontation between the engineer and Shaw is great because it does the film justice. I cut out the engineer prior to the doors opening. There are 2 shots of him standing up on the ship, and then one of him walking to the lifeboat. I also cut him entering a set of doors, and then continue with the work print until it's all over. The work print includes the engineer's face, not burned, when he's impregnated by the trilobite, which is great work because the deleted scene was unfinished. Then I'm going to keep the work print extended dialogue between Shaw and David. This version does not include the F-bomb from Shaw and her abuse of the cyborg. It shows her being kind and caring, even after all the hell she went through. The film then plays out normally with credits, including the work print credits. And I'm going to keep the work print plays the viral supplements of the crew and David Aids videos post-credits. I really like this because it's kind of like an eerie eulogy for them in a way, but I do trim them down a bit, including completely cutting the society clothing really weird one. So the Prometheus theatrical cut is 204.06. The Prometheus work print edition with all those crazy credits is 238.26. Prometheus, my own cut, 223.42. Thank you very much for watching. Godspeed.